Every single animal on Earth eats its food raw. Everyone, except us. No chimpanzee has ever built a fire to cook a banana. No lion has ever grilled its kill. No bird, no wolf, no dolphin, not one species out of the millions alive today has ever cooked a single meal. But somewhere along the way, one species looked at raw meat and decided to set it on fire first. And that one decision might be the reason you're smart enough to be watching this video right now. Think about that for a second. Cooking isn't instinct. No animal is born knowing how to make a fire. It's not like migration or building a nest or a spider spinning a web. Those are hardwired, passed down in the genes. Cooking had to be invented from scratch by trial and error by creatures who had never seen it done before. And once it was invented, humans never went back. So the question is simple. Why us? Out of millions of species on this planet across hundreds of millions of years of animals eating exactly what nature gave them, why did one particular ape decide raw food wasn't good enough? The answer starts almost 2 million years ago, and it doesn't start with humans being uniquely smart. It starts with humans being incredibly hungry. Picture an early human ancestor. Let's call him Erectus, because that's basically his name. Homo erectus, living roughly 1.9 million years ago. Imagine him foraging on the harsh, unforgiving African savanna, constantly dodging apex predators and competing with specialized scavengers for every single calorie. His diet is raw meat and raw plants. Here's the problem. Raw food is brutal to process. Raw meat is tough. You can spend over an hour just chewing enough of it to safely swallow. Raw plants are worse. Much of their energy is locked inside thick cell walls that the human gut can barely break down at all. Your body burns huge amounts of energy just digesting what you eat. And even after all that work, it still only absorbs a fraction of the calories actually sitting inside the food. For every other animal, this isn't a crisis. This is just life. A gorilla, for instance, spends nearly half of its entire waking day sitting and chewing, just mechanically grinding down leaves and stems to get enough calories to survive until tomorrow. Chimpanzees aren't far behind. That is the biological tax every raw food eater pays, and has always paid, for millions of years. But something different was happening inside Erectus. His brain was growing, and the growing brain is one of the most expensive organs in the entire animal kingdom to keep running. The brain makes up only about 2% of your total body weight, but it burns roughly 20% of your daily energy just idling. That's an enormous, disproportionate cost. Something had to give. Either the brain stays small, staying cheap and affordable the way it is in almost every other species, or something changes about how much energy the body can actually extract from its food in the first place. Nobody knows the exact moment cooking began. Maybe it was a wildfire that swept through, leaving behind scorched animal carcasses, and someone hungry enough or curious enough to try the burnt meat instead of walking past it. What we do know from decades of research since is that cooking changes food at a chemical level, and the effects are almost too good to be a coincidence. Cooked meat is dramatically easier to chew. Some studies suggest it takes 20 to 25 fewer chews to prepare a bite for swallowing compared to raw meat. Heat also breaks down tough muscle proteins and starches before your digestive system ever has to touch them, meaning your gut ends up absorbing far more usable energy per bite than it would from the same food raw. One widely cited estimate suggests cooking can boost the net calories your body actually absorbs from a meal by 30% or more, depending on the food in question. That's not a rounding error. That's a fundamental upgrade to the entire energy economy of the body. Suddenly, an animal doesn't need to spend half its day chewing anymore. It doesn't need an oversized gut built to slowly, painfully break down raw fiber hour after hour. All of that freed up time and all of that freed up energy had to go somewhere. And the leading theory, championed by primatologist Richard Wrangham, who has spent much of his career studying exactly this question, is that it went straight to the brain. Compare us to our closest living relatives. A chimpanzee has a large gut and a small brain. Humans have almost the exact opposite, a surprisingly small, efficient gut for our body size, paired with a brain roughly 3 times larger than a chimpanzee's. Somewhere in our evolutionary past, one of those organs got smaller so the other could get bigger. This trade-off even has a name in biology, the expensive tissue hypothesis. Big brains and big guts are both expensively metabolically to maintain, and the body typically can't afford to run both at full size at the same time. Cooking gave our ancestors permission to shrink the energy-hungry gut because it no longer had to do nearly as much heavy lifting to extract calories, and every calorie saved by a smaller gut could be redirected upward, fueling the growth of billions of additional neurons. Here's the part that makes this more than just a neat theory. Around the same window of time that cooking is believed to have become widespread among our ancestors, brain size explodes, one of the steepest, fastest increases anywhere in the entire hominid fossil record. That's not proof of a single isolated cause. Correlation never is, but it is an awfully suspicious coincidence, one that keeps showing up across multiple independent lines of fossil and genetic evidence. So here's the strange and almost backwards part of this whole story. We usually assume our big brains are what made us special enough to invent cooking in the first place, smart enough to figure out fire, smart enough to see the benefit. But growing evidence suggests the relationship might run the opposite direction. Cooking may not simply be proof of our intelligence, it might be one of the actual causes of it. Every other animal alive today is still stuck exactly where it's always been, spending half its waking day chewing raw food just to survive until tomorrow. And somewhere back in Africa, nearly 2 million years ago, one particular ape got tired of that deal, lit a fire, and permanently changed the entire trajectory of its own evolution and eventually the trajectory of the entire planet. So the next time you're standing at a stove cooking dinner, just remember, you're not simply making your food taste better or last longer. In a very real sense, you're repeating the exact same act that helped build the brain you're using right now to understand this sentence. If your brain just got a little bigger from that one, subscribe. There's a lot more strange, overlooked stuff about being human that most people were never taught.